I've seen a lot of people over on TikTok talking about objectophilia. Videos back and forth talking about how weird and maybe even dangerous it is to a person. Keep in mind, I'm not Objectum. I'm not really attracted to inanimate objects. I am just an outside party who has developed an interest in what these people have to say. So with that out of the way, I've been seeing so many people argue about it like it's the end of the world. It's not. Personally, I feel it's not that big of a deal. I've seen people compare it to back in how in 2021, people have been making DID and ADHD a trend, and now they just moved on to Objectum. However, with those incidents, I feel like the big thing that differentiates them apart is how they've caused a lot of misinformation circling around these disorders. From what I've researched, objectophilia seems to be harmless. No one is hurt in thinking a computer, calculator, or a TV is cute. I feel what's going to hurt people more is those who lie or pretend to have a disability that affects real people, and possibly even make your life harder to live than people posting about how air raid sirens look cool. From what I've seen, a common argument against objectophilia is how it quote-unquote hurts the person mentally, or because it is a paraphilia, it's a mental illness. I understand why people might feel this way, so I decided to read through a few health sources and articles covering it to figure out if this is true, as this paraphilia is relatively obscure. One source I found from the NOCD article, What is Objectophilia? The Attraction Towards Objects Explained, says, no, objectophilia is not a mental health condition or disorder, and is not classified in the DSM-5, the clinical manual doctors use to diagnose mental health conditions. Instead, it is considered by many to be a sexual orientation, albeit one that most people aren't as familiar with. Just because something is classified as a paraphilia, something someone has an unusual romantic or sexual interest in, does not necessarily mean it is a mental illness. There are paraphilic disorders, but that only occurs if the individual or other individuals are being directly harmed. For instance, paraphilias involving a non-consenting partner. This circles in with Wikipedia's article on objectophilia, which states, given that inanimate objects are inert and not harmed through object sexuality, most questions of objectophilia's legality or ethical providence have not arisen. Public sexual consummation of object sexual desires may be dealt with through nudity or anti-exhibitionism legislation. Realistically, I don't see people practicing these extreme objectophilic behaviors in public, so this concern seems to be pretty exaggerated. Another point I also found interesting is that the NOCD article links object sexuality to autism by stating, in fact, the DSM-5 describes a strong attachment to or preoccupation with unusual objects as a common characteristic of autistic people. As a result, specific traits of autism may relate to the development of objectophilia. I know that many individuals are familiar with how autistic people exhibit special interest in hyperfixations online. I don't see it out of the ordinary for someone who exhibits those traits to be sentimental when it comes to objects they're attached to. I hope that this perspective makes objectophilia seem less like a harmful and strange phenomenon, and more so just a trait exhibited by a fairly harmless condition. All in all, I feel the debate surrounding this issue to be blown significantly out of proportion. People have been complaining that this subject is rather strange and not something people should be okay with, but I'm sure there are much bigger issues currently going on in the world to worry about. Even if people argue that the whole subject of Objectum is nothing more than a trend, from what I've researched, it doesn't seem to actually harm people. So what if it is? Have your fun. Add googly eyes to on your calculators and funny face wallpapers to your computers. Go crazy. I hope you all have lovely days. Remember to treat those around you with respect and kindness. Goodbye.